Hi, good morning. Welcome to Capital Grounds Podcast. I'm your host, Nick Miller. I've got a special guest, future co-host with me, Luis Cortez. We're with SITG Capital. We're a real estate firm currently focused on multifamily properties in Houston, Dallas, and Austin. Looking to talk about Capital Grounds, real estate news, coffee, and what's going on in real estate markets today. Plus, today we're going to talk about a special focus on the Austin, Texas markets, what we like, what we don't like, and speculate on what we might see the future bring for it. So, Luis, how are you this morning?
I'm doing well, Nick. I'm glad to finally jump in on this. It's been an adventure seeing you guys start this deal and in the direction we're going, and a lot of exciting things going on. So I'm glad to be part of it.
Yeah, glad you're finally able to join us. We've had a couple week break here. We were in New York City for the single family office conference. And then last week, we all had a couple of extra meetings on our calendar. We weren't able to make it work, but we're here today. And thankfully, glad, Luis, glad you're able to join us. And certainly we'll look forward to having you on much more often as we get settled in and get into a good cadence. But um, yeah, so Luis, normally we start off when we talk about coffee, but as you and I have gotten to know each other a bit better, you're not really a coffee drinker. Tell me more.
Oh man, I've tried it. I'm pretty sensitive to caffeine, so I have to kind of be careful with what I drink. I say that, so I will drink something espresso based, which obviously makes a little bit of a contradiction to that statement because obviously espresso is a lot more concentrated, but I can spread it out and I've found that I can balance out my energy boost as I need it through the day. But it does take a trip to Starbucks. I'm not really have anything here at the house. I've just had too much of a bad experience, I guess, with coffee in the past.
Yeah, that's all right. That's all right. It's like anything. Uh, some people like it, some people don't, and that's okay. That's okay. So what
Yeah.
is your choice of drink or your drink of choice? If you get up in the morning, do you like to have something warm, something to start your day to kick you going? What do you do?
Man, I usually just pound some water when I get up just to help with hydration, as I think a lot of us, we struggle to drink enough water. So that's usually where I start. But if I do need a little boost, I'm kind of an energy drink guy. I've found that those, they're a little more tasteful for me. I think that's probably the biggest thing. In fact, I've got the one I started with today, which was a C4 energy. Um, and I mean, it took me
Sounds
like over an
explosive.
hour to drink it. Yeah, it's
Wow.
explosive, right? C4. But yeah, I think a lot of it, I think, just comes down to flavor, and coffee to me, obviously, you got to doctor it up a lot, which I know a lot of coffee enthusiasts would be like, well, that's getting away of the coffee, right? When you turn it into a milkshake, I think it's like if it's not black, it's a milkshake, is what people will say, and I think that's what I pretty much have to turn mine into to drink it. But yeah, no, I found an energy drink here and there just kind of helps give me an extra little lift to get a more clear minded and um, gets to do the trick, and in my opinion, tastes a little better.
Yeah, I definitely fall into that camp. If it's not black, it's a milkshake. But I think Joe would probably fall in the other camp, and to each their own. That's the beauty of it. But I'll share with you. So as you've seen, we like to share a little story about a cup. And unfortunately, I've mentioned in previous episodes, my wife and I are currently in a period of transition, so a lot of our belongings are in storage as we get settled into Kansas. We'll be looking for a new place to live here in the near future, looking to buy a house. But in the meantime, I brought this cup. This is a cup that she made 21 years ago. So she would have been 10 years old. They made this for Mother's Day. And anyway, as I raise my own daughter, I think crafts like these are fun and a way to keep those memories alive. But Luis,
Yeah, absolutely.
what's your
I think
mother's
that's pretty.
choice?
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
I'm a Yeti guy, but I was gonna say it's a great story. I didn't realize. I mean, it's kind of cool. Your wife made that cup, and now you're drinking out of it when she was a little girl.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I've got two boys, and they both made a ceramic. mug for my wife. So I guess that's kind of a tradition. I didn't do that when I was in like preschool or even younger elementary arts and crafts. But
Me
it's
neither.
it's funny that you had that. I didn't realize that was the mug you had. Um, because yeah, I literally just saw my son's the other day, and it's got this little, and he engraved his name in it, and that's something that's going to be hopefully around for a long time. It's a little family heirloom and part of a great story, family tradition. So I'm glad to see that on your end too. Um, but as far as me, I am a Yeti guy. Being here in Austin for now 22 years. Yeti was born and raised right here in Dripping Springs, which is part of the metro. Two brothers started that company back, and one of them went to A&M, one of them went to Tech. Give me just a second. I pulled up that story because I thought that was. I know it's I think it's Roy and Reed, um, two brothers out of Dripping Springs. But yeah, that's been my go-to drinking apparatus for gosh, since they came on the market in the early 2000s. I want to say around 2005, 2006. Of course, their brand has grown and blown up. I think bigger than they ever imagined. And um, it's just a quality product that holds heat and as well as holds ice forever. And I know some people don't feel it's worth the money, but I can attest to the difference between them and other copycats. And nothing holds up like a Yeti, both from a standpoint of hot and cold, keeping the temperature as well as actually like having this thing get hit by a bus and not break.
For our viewers or listeners, I want to clarify, this is not a paid sponsorship, though it might seem like it. But no, what I like about Yeti on the flip side of that, a lot of their pieces regarding their bottles are interchangeable,
Yeah,
so you can have one lid that fits on, any of their Rambler size bottles, and it's just plug and play for a lot of that stuff, and that's what I like. I like
yeah.
versatility. I like to buy it right,
Buy
buy
it
it
once. That's
once,
right.
and have it work with other
Amen to that.
stuff. Yeah, yeah. Well, shoot, actually, I've got a Yeti there in Austin that I left at a friend's house a couple months ago when I was down there visiting. Man, I had to buy another one because it was my go-to drinking bottle, water bottle day in and day
Yeah,
out. I bought a different size, but man, I wish I had that back. One of these days, though. One of these
yeah,
days.
yep. No, I hear you. Yeah, no, I think, and it's really cool to see the evolution of where they started as with just ice chest, and then went to Ramblers and drinking products, and now there's a huge following, right? It's kind of
Big time.
kind of a cult, right? Another company that was born out of Austin is Tecovas, right? Tecovas boots, and um, they have a huge following, right? I think it's just they figured out the marketing piece to Western wear, and I think Yeti figured it out to how to get the high quality product to the outdoors, your outdoor community. So now you customize everything. And of course, they have all different carrying bags, carrying coolers. Finally got one on wheels because they realized like those things do get pretty heavy when they're loaded up. It's kind of hard to move them
Yeah.
around. But anything that's high quality, you probably figure is gonna probably weigh a little more in that product category. So, but really cool to see them, right here. They were direct to consumer when they started, and now their flagship stores right here on South Congress. Really cool place just to visit and go see. And of course, they have a pretty large store in the Domain area as well. So
And Austin, it's a fun little town. Fun little town. Good place to visit.
yeah, not so little these days. Now
It's
we're
grown.
yeah, I know we're going to be talking a lot about Austin, and it's the 10th largest city now in the U.S. We're a little over 2.2 million people in the metro. Gotten to witness that firsthand. Um, so it's been incredible. It's been an incredible journey, and I think some people have loved it, and a lot of people have come here because they see the opportunity and the vibrance of the city, and it's incredibly diverse community, and as well, and not just from a standpoint of people, but also cuisine, um, activities, cultural events. All the festivals we have. The live music capital of the world. There's just a lot to love about Austin, and I think somebody like me who's been here for a long time about the only thing I think that's a consensus is the traffic. It's nobody's really a fan. Um, but I think that's going to happen anytime you see large explosive growth in a in a metro. It's a little more complicated because of our topography and our geographic system from the standpoint of having lakes that essentially interfere with being able to put roads, straight across them, as far as having to go around lakes. I was sharing this story with a friend of mine the other day over here. So we live in Leander, my wife and I, and our two kids.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
and so we're just north of Lake Travis over here, like close to Jonestown. And well, Spicewood is about an hour drive for us. But if there was a bridge across Lake Austin in this specific section right there around Lago Vista, it's less than a mile. You can literally see Spicewood from Lago Vista.
Wow.
And I mean, you can, and so it's literally like 5 minutes, 10 minutes max for me to get to the park, to Lago. And it would just be like, if I could just take a ferry across, I could be in Spicewood in 15 minutes instead of the hour drive to go all the way around. So that's also kind of what makes Austin unique from just a pure land standpoint, right? East of 35 is a lot of flat farmland. West of 35 is, your hills. And of course, the capital and university sit on the west side of 35, except of course, portion of the university, including UT Dish Rock Field, is just literally right east of 35 on the highway. So there's definitely been a lot of growth, and obviously with the people, I think the last time I looked at the numbers, we have roughly at least 2021 to 2022, there was roughly 160 people a day moving to the Austin Metro. That's net, people going out, people coming in,
160 a day?
160
Wow.
people a day were moving to
That's
Austin.
wild.
That's crazy.
That's
That's crazy.
nuts.
When I went to UT in 2001, I think the metro was just under 800,000. I know Austin proper was around 650. Um, so Leander alone, which is Leander City Park, Cedar Park, are essentially the same town. There's no separation. I think we're 4x, 5x since then. I remember driving out here one day with my brother when he was at UT in the late 90s, and going past going once you got past Capital of Texas, the Arboretum area, which at that time was a kind of a newer shopping center kind of domainish. If you've been to the Domain now, a little more spread out, but there was almost nothing past that. And now, when we got to Lakeland Mall, I was like, wow, this is really out here. And then Cedar Park is just past that, and there was like two lights, and now it's just shopping and houses everywhere. I mean, the rooftops even in Leander, last time I talked to a real estate broker, we were at an economic update. He told me, and of course, this was, a few months ago before rates, creeped up and have kind of, put a little bit of a damper on things, but there were over 14,000 permitted rooftops at that time, just in
Holy
Leander,
smokes. I
just
mean,
in Leander.
160 people a year, 160 people a day, that's almost 60,000 people a year. I
Yeah.
think it's, 57, 58 and change. That's a huge number. That's a
Yeah.
huge number.
Obviously, I think it's tough to sustain that type of growth. But and of course, there's obviously that it creates a huge supply and demand issue, right? As far as pricing, and that's why you saw such a crazy premium issue right after COVID, when people finally started opening up their homes and putting them back on the market. People who were ready to move or transition.
Sure.
People were paying. I mean, I had a friend in a 2-week period, they were going to list their house at $699. And in 2 weeks, their agent came back and said, we need to list at $799, just because the market had moved that much in comparables. They ended up selling that house for $942, I think. The final number, 904, starting at 700, ended up at almost 950.
Wow.
I mean,
Wow.
250,000 in a less than them, and they literally sold the house before it officially hit the market. They were showing
Yeah.
it the same day it hit the same day they put the sign in the ground. They started showing it, and it was sold literally before it hit the market.
That sounds like their real estate, their agent didn't make a good suggestion in the first place if you have to make that much of an adjustment in a 2 week period.
Well, yeah,
But
I
yeah,
mean, it's just that's how fast numbers are moving. Yeah, go ahead.
sure. Yeah, we can dig into Austin here in a few. Um, Man, I appreciate the story, and I'm excited to talk to viewers about your experience living there in Austin, how you've seen the market and the environment change. But before we dig deeper into all of that, let's just talk about some of the local, sorry, not local, but today's real estate news. And I saw in the Wall Street Journal there's another article about the Appleway portfolio down in Houston, and I think they kind of did a little give more background into the owner of Apple's Way. They talked about uh, the number of small investors that are going to end up losing money in that deal, right?
Yeah, yeah.
All because rates have changed. And I think it's an interesting experience, the current environment we're in right now, because we're seeing rate changes have a number of financial impacts that people, I mean, in the real estate world, having a variable rate increase and your cap rate explode in value or in cost, that's nothing new. But
Hmm.
with some of these banks like S had all of these massive losses from their treasuries being
Sure.
the value of their treasuries being changed. It's an interesting world we're living in right now. And I think, I imagine someday some college kid's going to be reading a case study about all the different effects from this. But um, yeah, I don't know if you saw that same article,
Yeah, yeah.
Luis,
No,
or what
I
other news
definitely
you've seen,
I
but
saw it. I gave it a quick skim, and there were definitely some takeaways, and we can have an incredibly analytical conversation about it, but I'm not sure if that would be great for our viewers. But just high level, right? I think that's a very key takeaway when reviewing something like what's happened with Apple's Way. And in a nutshell, right, it's either management, being poorly managed, and that includes financial management, or financial structuring. And I think it got to the point where their loans just weren't conducive to how they were operating. And taking out, over leveraging is never a a winning situation. And I think there's certainly an argument to be made if you did a deep dive, and obviously trying to make sure that your loans and terms are structured to be to put you in the winner's seat, right? Or being conducive to how you want to operate your portfolio. So I think this is certainly a learning lesson. I certainly feel horrible for the investors who are either going to be walking away with pennies on the dollar, if anything at all. But that's something I think we take incredibly seriously right here at our firm at SITG, of being completely aligned with our clients, and SITG standing for skin in the game, that we come alongside them, right? We don't, it's the Warren Buffett
right.
approach of do not lose your clients or your investors dollars, and we don't want to do that because we don't want to lose our dollars either. So I think it's a different mentality, right? Mindset is, I think, probably 80% of the battle when you come into this, and that helps create the discipline, the consistent management that produces results, as well as protects and advocates for your client base to make sure that those investments that they make with us are not just solid, but that they perform, and that we deliver, right? And I think that's something we take incredibly serious here at
Absolutely.
SITG.
Yeah. And I think part of what this, Gajavelli's situation is a great example. You know, um, his background wasn't in finance. I don't know if he had a mentor, right? Or if he had any, there are a lot of people out there that pitch, kind of get rich quick schemes. And the more that I read about their situation, the more it seems maybe that's kind of the pit that they fell into. But all of our team, almost all of our team, everybody but our COO has, a strong financial background, financial, education, Series 766 licensing, financial advice backgrounds, so it's these are all things that we're going to be looking out for. But it's interesting. I mean, cap rates are crushing a lot of companies, and potentially over the next couple of months, we may see more of these situations. But my hope is that a lot of people who have been in the game for a while have been able to see what may be coming, right? Because lowest rates on history can't last forever. But
Hmm.
I did see, I was looking at a property, and obviously, I won't mention where, but they talked about a year and a half, 2 years ago, their cap rate was priced at 3,000 a month. They were paying 3,000 a month for their cap rate, and as of March, it was over $100,000 a month, which is $1 million change in cost on an annual basis, and it
Mm.
crushed their numbers. But those are things that you have to build into the pro formas when you're crunching the
Yeah.
numbers. You've got to build those out, and I certainly don't want to get stuck with something like that. And if you price it out right, it might make more sense to not pay for the cap rate and just take the rate change. But that's probably, like you mentioned, I think that's a different conversation for a different day.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I think I read that Fundamental ended up buying that portfolio. There's a lot of work to be done with that portfolio, with the Apple's Way portfolio. Certainly a lot of work, but uh, you know, one man's
Yeah. I
trash
think
is another man's treasure, right?
exactly. And I
Not
think there's
that
a lot of,
those are trash portfolios, but
yeah, no, exactly. I know, I understand what you're saying. I think our viewers do as well. I think the other thing to consider, right, is like I was talking about earlier, these premiums that people were paying, that was happening on apartments as well, right? People coming in
oh
and to be
yeah.
able to, yeah, to be able to play, they were having to overpay basically, right? And that's something we just don't do. If it does not fit our model, we don't do it. If there's a premium that we have to pay to get in play, we're probably not going to be a buyer on that property, right? Because we want to, again, back to what we were talking about as far as drinkware, right? Buy it right once, and I think
Yep.
that's really the mentality we take is we want to essentially kind of, you think about it, you kind of make your money when you buy it, not when you sell it, right? Because if we know we go in there, we get a good value on our piece of property that fits our model. And not only do we know that from a mathematical standpoint, it puts us in a position to win, it also puts our clients in a position to win. And it just takes so much less risk. It takes a lot of risk off the table. So
Yeah, and we build in cushion, right? When we look at a property and we run the numbers, we try to build in cushion because we want to make sure
yeah.
that the scenarios like this, that if they were to happen, I mean, you and I both know, we've talked to clients in the past about black swan scenarios like COVID, like the
Mm,
2008, 2009 financial crisis, like 9/11. Like, I mean, you could just go back, the dot-com burst. There's always a black swan event of some sort. You
sure.
don't know what it is, you don't know how it's going to affect things, but you can almost guarantee that in the next 10 to 20 years, decade or two, we're going to have some sort of black swan event, right? Um, and we can obviously we have no way to predict those.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, my looking glass is in the shop right now getting repaired, but we try to price those in as much as we can, some
Sure.
scenarios, and at the end of the day, if we're wrong and it's not as bad as we think it might be, then we're going to be in better shape. And if it's
Sure.
worse than we, project, then we should still hopefully come out ahead. So, like I
Yeah.
tell,
Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I was going to say, like I tell some people, yeah, back in the day, people, when I was giving advice to clients, they were concerned about, what if markets go to zero? And people that I still talk with, what if markets go to zero? I always told people, hey, if markets go to zero, what's in your bank account's the least of your concern. You're going to be more
Yeah,
concerned about what's in your fridge, or your cupboard, I
exactly.
guess.
Yes. Yeah. I was about to say we have a lot bigger problems to worry about. Like, how are we going to stay alive? Yeah. So, because I mean,
Yeah.
that's uh, major, probably nuclear war to create that kind of economic event. I mean, think about uh, the resiliency of our economy as well as um, just people in general, right? But I think it all goes back to like our advising days, right? Making sure that people are positioned to weather a storm. And I think that's how we're also positioned. And a lot of that goes back to, again, our financial structuring of not over leveraging, right? Or, I mean, what's the latest on our average LTV? What is that, 55%? I mean, you'd have to have huge drops
Yeah, for the
in
income fund.
yeah, we'd have to have huge drops in occupancy. I mean, and, the algorithm there, um, I'm not sure that's ever been broken, right? Because, you come in and again, you're trying to find quality places that meet the model. And then you also factor in for, interest rate risk and what that could do. So again, when you take a worst case scenario, especially considering, some of these recent events that we've gone through, right, with COVID, like you said, and even going back to the oh 07, oh 08, oh 09, financial, or credit crisis, as I like to call it, or what it was, right? That freezing up of money. Um, and again, people just, if they could understand those basics, um, it makes a conversation that we have with people a lot easier, right? Because in my time, and I know we're going to talk about this a little bit, in my almost 20-year history as a financial professional, either as an advisor or an executive, a leader of advisors, as a director of a regional director of sales and wealth management. It's amazing to me, quite honestly, that there's still a lack of financial literacy out there of just understanding, you know, interest rates and leverage and how lending works and the difference between asset classes and correlation.
Fractional banking. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's so, and again, I don't say that as a knock to people. I just think that that's a sad part of our society that we don't educate people, at the high school level, even the college level, even if our degrees are in finance, we're getting taught very technical things, right? I actually took a personal finance class. It was called Personal and Family Finance. And I went to the professor and I told her, and I was already in wealth management. I was already licensed as a junior broker, and I told the professor, I said, why isn't this on every degree plan as a requirement, like a gen ed, like a history or government? And she said, I've been fighting for that for over 20 years. That everybody should take this class before graduating from UT. And so even then, it's like you think, wow, it's like the disservice. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to go down too much of a rabbit hole here, but it is
No,
something
you're
I'm
good.
passionate about. Because um, when yeah, we talk to a lot of high net worth folks, we talk to family offices, we visit with people who are looking to get into real estate investing, right? But it still goes back to the basic fundamentals of just being financially sound, right? And how that correlates, because it's important, right? If people's finances, and when we're talking with people, right, we're qualifying them because we need them to be accredited investors to come into this. But even for people who are just trying to take that next step, I'm happy to have that conversation with people, because to me, it's just being of service and just trying to help them figure out a way to get to that point where they can participate in our type of funds, or our type of offerings. So I take that seriously, right? I take that literacy piece, that it's important, because I think there are a lot of people operating either on false pretenses, that they're sometimes incredibly intelligent people, and I'm talking physicians, pharmacists, engineers, right? That they just don't quite understand the world of money as somebody like you or myself do, and it's not their fault. They never got taught. Nobody ever taught them, that.
Right.
And I think that's important for us to hopefully fill that gap and be that resource for them, whether they become clients for us or not. And I think that's also something that separates us from other firms, is we take that approach, right? As director of business development, that's something I'm charged with, is that when people come to us, that we make sure that we understand their complete financial picture, right? So that we make sure that we're making appropriate recommendations. And that's no different than a fiduciary would do, at another investment type of firm, that you and I have worked at before. So I think that's important, right, to take into consideration of what makes us different, right? Is that we take a wealth management approach to it. It's not just a fundamental approach to multifamily commercial real estate investing, right? It's not just the widget that we're offering. It's also the approach and the process that we take in educating people, right?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, that's the same reason I got involved in the business, and that's what drove my career way back when I was a bank teller, originally first getting into finance, was just seeing the lack of overall education, lack of financial knowledge people have. Because you're right, if somebody doesn't teach you, you're probably, and if it's not something that interests you, you're probably not ever going to learn it,
Yeah.
unless you teach yourself, and that takes a lot of time and effort. But Luis, let's dig into Austin. So you're an Austinite. Is that the correct term? Austinite?
It is the correct term. I don't believe an Austinite would agree. I've been here more than half. I've been here more than half of my life, but most Austinites are literally born and raised in Austin. Have been maybe left for college and came back, but typically Austinites are born and raised in Austin and live in Austin, or at least the Austin
Okay,
metro. So, yeah. But
got it. Okay,
I have officially been here more than half my life.
okay. So maybe they'll adopt you if you're lucky, right?
Yeah. Well, it's like people who move from out of state and they want to be called a Texan. And I tell them, I was like, until you've been here half of your natural life, you're not considered a Texan. So,
Oof, oof, gatekeeping. But it is what it is. I don't think we have anything like that here in Kansas. I think if somebody wants to move here, it'd be called a Kansan. We're like, sure,
yeah,
but
sure. Yeah. Welcome aboard. Yeah. Now, Texas,
yeah,
I mean, Texas, obviously originally called Tejas from Mexico, having been part of Mexico for so long. It stands for friend, so, we
I
treat
love that.
I think a lot of Texans, I mean, we've never met a stranger. You can see I'm extroverted as it gets, as most people will say. And I think a lot of that is we're just very proud. We're a proud state. We're proud, technically, could be our own country again, be it that we're still a republic. We have our Constitution is written that way. So there's a reason our flag is allowed to fly as high as the U.S. flag. People can look into that on their own time. But yeah, I think that Austin is a great place for a lot of different reasons. We'll get into that here in just a second. I know you wanted to touch base on some stats.
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting. Austin settled 1835, incorporated 1839, before Texas was even a state, right?
Yeah, yeah.
1845.
1845, we joined the Union. Yep.
Yeah, so it's been around quite a while. It's been a very popular place here in the last handful of years. But gosh, you were telling me some statistics that were pretty fascinating. Current population's what, 2.2, 2.4 million?
Yeah, somewhere, yeah, the numbers range per data source, but yeah, we're somewhere between 2.2 and 2.4, depending on what towns I guess you're going to be considering part of the metro. Um, and yeah, we're some places have us ranked in between 10th largest city in the country, and of course, when you're in that bubble, there's quite a few folks, and depending again what you consider the metro, but latest data I saw
Sure.
was 10th largest city, per population. But something that a lot of people, of course, a lot of people call us the next Silicon Valley, right? And that opens up a lot of different elements. First thing I want to start off is education. We're actually, per the last economic update that I went to at one of our chambers of commerce, that we are the highest concentration of educated workforce in the country, if not the world. So we have per capita, per population, we have more degreed people living in the Austin metro than anywhere else in the U.S. I think that
Wow.
that I think that actually fits really well as why, because with so many tech jobs, and I got this from someone, I haven't been able to fact check it, but I believe there are, at least now, or will be once Apple's second campus and Google's towers are finished, and of course with Tesla already here, and Samsung building a huge, I think this number is correct, $17 billion plant out in Taylor,
Wow. Wow.
that we either now have or will have. So I'm not sure where the qualifier is. More tech jobs or tech roles here in the Austin metro than in Silicon Valley or San Francisco. So that says a lot. I think that speaks to our economy in Texas in general, but Austin specifically being a very attractive place for those type of jobs, not because their companies are here, but I think, keeping Austin weird, and Austin being a little bit more of a quote unquote blue part of the state. It's a very diverse city, right? So I think it makes it very attractive for those type of companies, as well as those type of employees and professionals that'll be moving to Austin. But here's why I really like Austin, right? You have, as we mentioned before, the lakes and everything to do down there. If anybody's ever been to the South Congress area, you probably have caught the Congress Street Bridge, where you have all your bats flying out at sunset. One of the
That's
coolest
why I
experiences.
like Austin, the bats.
One of the coolest experiences you can have. I mean, unless you're in some sort of country where you have a bat cave and you get to see this event happening every day, one of the coolest things you can really capture in Austin. But what a little known fact is, if you drive up, if it's too packed or too crowded, or maybe you can't get into downtown for whatever reason, you can actually capture not quite the volume, but still the same kind of effect at the 620 crossing bridge on 35 in Round Rock. So we have a large bat community colony there underneath this bridge at 620 and 35. So a lot of people don't know that.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah,
so and
I'm gonna
sorry, go ahead.
interrupt you here for a quick second here,
Yeah.
because Joe's wife is a meteorologist now on a Dallas morning news station. But when she was in Austin, they both lived in Austin. She showed us that their radar actually picks up the bats when they fly out from under the bridge.
Yep.
It's
There's that
fascinating.
many of them. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's honestly, I mean, you got to see it to believe it. It's a really cool experience. But yeah, that whole SoCo area, South Congress area, I mean, just super vibrant. I mean, I can't think of, I mean, just about every kind of food you can think of, right? So that's another reason I love Austin. Um, a lot of people say location, location, location. Austin's all about jobs, 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 right? I mean, there's just a ton of jobs. You have so many different types of companies moving here, all sorts of, of course, with that growth, you have all sorts of construction, whether that be residential housing, multifamily, hotels. I mean, you've got all sorts of growth going on. And granted, we have seen a little bit of slow this year, with rates going on. People are being, financially, I would say, conservative, right, in limiting their exposure to taking on too many projects too fast. So we have actually seen a little bit of slowing, but nothing that I would say. I mean, I would still say, I see builders. I mean, I see literally new land development. It seems like every week I'll drive down a road, all of a sudden there's bulldozers. I mean, so it may be slowing, but there is nowhere near close to stopping, right? I mentioned those 14,000 rooftops. That was over a year ago, right? That was like kind of somewhere in the middle of COVID, into 2022, or beginning of 2022. When I had that conversation, I'm like, that is a lot of houses. I mean, think about it. If
yeah,
an
it
average
is.
family household is four, and you have 14,000, I mean, what is that? 60,000 new people probably. So that's something we see, right? Is also the jobs for in education, because we're building schools like crazy.
Sure.
I mean, just in Leander ISD. So this is kind of an interesting point of view or perspective, right? Leander High School, where we are, and I know I'm talking Leander, and I'm just specifically talking about where I live. I believe the high school was built in, it was either 1888 or 1898, something like that. It took until I think it's 1998 to build a second high school. It's almost 100, right at 100 years to build a second high school.
Holy smokes. Goodness.
And from 1998 till now, I think it's
Ooh,
eight more high schools, and that's because we still need another one. So it's just mind blowing how many people are moving to Central Texas, and I think a lot of the reason, like I said, is jobs. Another reason is we have just an incredible, vibrant activity lifestyle of lifestyle, right? You have the lakes you can go and paddleboard
You
and,
do for sure.
you know, wakeboard, be on a boat, go fishing. You still have other lakes, because we're all part of the Colorado River system here. We can go to Inks Lake, and that's a constant level lake, or Buchanan. All those are within an hour drive time. So if you have more of a fishing lifestyle, it's not that far. Lake Belton is right up the road. I mean, you have all sorts of lakes here in Central Texas to access. And of course, with that comes parks, right, and camping and outdoor lives and places to go hike. So I think Austin is a very outdoors lifestyle type of city. And again, so that makes it very attractive. And again, back to the food. I mean, you got all sorts of. I mean, literally, like I mean, every country you could probably think of that has a type of cuisine that's known for, we have it. From high-end dining to your food trucks, and of course, I believe we do have that claim of starting the food truck community, because that started right there on South Congress as well. And probably one of the most well-known food trucks that come out of that to start a restaurant chain is Torchy's Tacos, right? And I think anybody who's
I
had their
like me some
case,
Torchies.
I know, man. We call it uh, we call her queso crack. I forgot what my wife called it, but it's basically like crack queso or something like that, because it's incredibly addicting. Um, but anyhow, so I mean, from other things about Austin, what I love about it is, you have all sorts of diversity, right? I mean, I'm not sure if there's a continent that's not represented here. Culturally, you see everybody from the people who dye their hair color the other way to guys wearing, the Wall Street type of guys wearing suits, to somebody like me who's in boots and jeans, right in the middle. We have our own Major League Soccer team now with Austin FC. That stadium is right next to the Domain. Beautiful, beautiful architecture. Great environment to go watch a game of soccer. And of course, great fans. And that's the Domain area, right? That's kind of the newer. It's been around for a while. It's been around since mid 2000s, so about 2005, 2006. We actually lived there for about a year while we were building our home, and it was a really cool experience to live there. And now it's booming. I mean, it's if something's open, I mean, from restaurants to shopping to companies having jobs there. It's a really cool place to hang out, and highly recommend it. Then of course from sports, continue with the sports. Of course, the Texas Longhorns, my alma mater for undergrad. It's kind of its own professional team. We're the most valuable collegiate program out there, and there's a reason the place is packed. And I think somebody told me we get anywhere between 250,000 to upwards of 500,000 people, extra people in town during a football game. I mean, it's just nuts. So you can imagine how that
Yeah, it's
adds to
wild.
our traffic pattern, because you factor there's over 100,000 seats in the stadium, right? And then you have people that are just coming to tailgate. So I mean, it's just an incredible experience. The Round Rock Express has been a popular staple for baseball. People want to catch baseball. We also have our own. We have the D League San Antonio Spurs, which are called the Austin Spurs, right here in Cedar Park. So so if you want basketball, football, baseball, soccer, we've got you covered. And of course, Circuit of the Americas was brought to, which is the F1 track for the U.S. Was brought to
Right.
Austin, Southeast Austin. I think that was around 2010-ish time frame. I remember going to a meeting, and it was a lot of elected officials and chamber representatives, and got that presentation. And I was thinking, wow, it's like that's crazy. But they literally showed us a chart how if you divide the northern, as far as the from the northern hemisphere, and you go halfway up and then back and forth side, east and west, that Austin is almost smack dab in the middle of the world when it comes to people who come to F1. And so I thought that was a pretty interesting dynamic. But the economic I mean, I think was a huge thing, because that also made Austin even more popular. And then of course F1 is just not the only thing that happens at Circuit of the Americas. You have all sorts of concerts, high end concerts from I'm pretty sure Taylor Swift has played there already. We went and watched Def Leppard. I mean, anybody and everybody you can think of is going to play there because of the amphitheater and the multi-use that facility provides. And then we have Tesla City down there now. Tesla's got their Gigafactory. I mean, it's amazing. It takes up, I think, it's at a mile. If you drive down the 130 toll, you will see Tesla's factory. It's just an incredible sight to go and see. And of course, Google is coming in. They have two major towers downtown. Again, more jobs. Apple's second campus, which is even bigger than their first campus, is coming right up here on Palmer Lane, right at the border of Austin and Cedar Park. And then, like I said earlier about Samsung's huge factory that they're putting in Taylor. I believe that's going to be their primary semiconductor location in the world is going to be in Taylor, Texas, which is part of our metro as well. So, like I said, all sorts of opportunities, all sorts of companies coming into town, which of course, good quality, high-paying jobs, which of course still continues to drive our market. So it's a runway that doesn't really have a foreseeable end, I think. So that 2.2 million or so realistically is probably going to be 5 million in the next 15, 20 years. I mean, I can't see how we don't double in size and become even larger. It used to be when you went from San Antonio to Austin, it was pretty gappy, right? I mean, you notice San Marcos, which is 20 minutes from the city center. You can go float the river there. I mean, that's another thing to love about it.
Well,
And now
shoot.
you go through and it's just continuous, man. You don't even feel like you left San Antonio. It means from there to New Braunfels to, which of course is home of Schlitterbahn, the world's largest water park. Then San Marcos, and you hit Kyle and Buda. Kyle and Buda used to be the country, and now it's all just one. It's almost one mega highway. And now you get as far as Darrell, even to Salado, and it feels like you've never left town. And sooner than later, from Salado to essentially Waco, because you saw Belton and Temple. I mean, all those cities just continue. Everything in that I-35 corridor is just continuing to grow, and it's just blows my mind in 20 years how much growth there's been.
You've sold me on Austin. I'm moving there. Let's do it. I'm going. Do you
A
have an
lot of
extra
opportunity.
room?
I
Kidding.
actually do have an extra
Kidding.
room right now.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well,
no,
I'll tell you,
it's just incredible. I mean, real estate obviously is a solid asset class. It does obviously pose challenges, right, from a pure economic supply and demand issue. Prices are certainly going to be pressured in the upward direction. But I think interest rates have helped, maybe put a little bit of those flames out, but nothing that I think is going to cause anybody to say, "Hey, I got to get out of Austin." There's not opportunity, right? So I think we're primed to grow, and we're a sleepy college town for so long, and of course we're the state capital. But no matter how hard people fought it to try to keep it that way, I mean, you cannot stop progress when it comes to the attractiveness of one, the landscape, the beautiful landscape of the real estate of Austin, its topography and its lakes, and it's the hilly areas around UT and even just in the west side of 35. And then of course just the very strategic moves that even surrounding cities made that even helped. I mean, talk about Dell Computers, right? I mean, that being launched in Michael Dell's dorm room at UT, and then headquartered in Round Rock. I mean, I think that was probably one of the biggest dominoes that fell, and then it just kind of went.
yeah, yeah. So, I'll tell you some of the reasons I like Austin. You've got, I think it's still Texas's most expensive rental market if you're looking to live there. Although I think I just read a report as of April, rental prices I think have dropped 4%. So we're starting to see, some of those numbers, maybe a slight correction in that area because they were
Mhm.
just growing at incredible paces for so long.
Yeah, I think
But
supply has helped. Supply catching up, I think, has helped a little bit with that. Yeah.
yeah, a little, yeah, finally. And people just, price is just correcting on their own. Hopefully, we'll see some of that demand not slow down too much. And I'll tell you, we don't own any rental properties in Austin, but we've got a couple of projects there, build to sell projects where there's a lot of good opportunity still. And with the jobs coming in, it's I think, and again, I'm an outsider looking in. I think we're going to see some sustained prices there, especially as some of these big tech firms continue to move in and increase their investment into the Austin area. I think we're going to
Mhm.
see the population continue to grow, but um, I'll tell you, you clearly, um, I love how enthusiastic you are about Austin, and it sounds like you really love the place you live. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, we do. My wife and I, we both went to UT, so we both graduated from there. And I think a lot of us, right? We graduated from UT and stayed. I don't think that's the bulk of the population, but it's kind of funny though. I a lot of people that went to A&M or went to Tech or went to Baylor, and they're living here too. So I think it's a fun place to live. It's a pretty young, still a very young city. There's a lot more. I would say there's a lot more youth, right? And so I think it just has a different vibe, right? And I think and the great thing about Austin though in the metro is that you can find your pocket of town that fits you, right? It doesn't have to be if you're like um, love live music and you want to be in the thick of it. You got downtown, you got SoCo. If you want to say, hey, I'm more trying to raise my family and want a little bit slower pace of life, but I still want to have quick access to go, enjoy everything that's in town. I mean, there's not anything. I mean, you think either Kyle, Buda, Leander, Cedar Park, Round Rock, Georgetown, Hutto, Taylor, Bastrop, Manor, Elgin. I mean, everything that touches there. And of course, I mean, the other thing we need to talk about, in our food is, me being born and bred Texan is barbecue. We can kind of maybe jump into that next in another one of our Austin based. But Lockhart is one of the barbecue capitals of the world. But we have world class barbecue, and it's all within 30 to 45-minute drive. So depending on where you want it to go. Um, and so anyway, it is, yeah, I'm definitely passionate about where I live. I love living here. About the only downside I would definitely say, and I think most people would agree, is the traffic is definitely something you got to deal with. However, if you know your way around town, most of the time you got some outs. But or you just try to plan your time if you don't want to be stuck in traffic, to either leave early or leave later, or either going to or from. So it's just one of those things you can manage. But I like to get a lot of calls, excuse me, done while I'm in the, as I call it, windshield time. If I got windshield time, I try to make phone calls and catch up on things, catch up with clients, or even just maybe call a friend every once in a while just to see how they're doing. So and still be productive.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, one of the things that would make me love Austin more is if their local government could move a little quicker in the permitting process. They've got such a long, long time that it's expensive. It's expensive to wait as long as it takes there.
Sure, sure,
Especially
and
when we can.
yeah, I
Yeah, go
agree.
ahead.
No, I agree. I think, and that's a known issue. I think some people price that in, as far as the frustration that comes in there. But I would definitely say they're still overall they're very pro business. It's just, but to be pro business, I think they do have to get better at, especially like, hey, you get somebody into town, but it's going to take them forever to build their building. It doesn't necessarily align. Yeah, the permitting can be a headache, and the hoops that you have to jump through, which can keep people out, right. Can say it's just not worth it. But I think there's still a lot of opportunities. Just a matter of how does that fit into the overall strategy for the firm.
Yeah, certainly, and that's something we have to price in when we crunch the numbers. But I'll tell you, with the time frame that we've got in cities like Houston and Dallas is getting almost as bad as Austin these days. But it's something you have to include when you really dig into it. But we're coming up on time here. We've spent quite a lot of time talking with you about our focus on Austin. And as you can tell, there are a lot of great things going on there. It's an expensive place to live right now, likely still going to be an expensive place over the next couple of years. But we continue to believe that there's some great potential investment opportunities, and we will continue to price out and look to make those investments as time moves forward. But Louis, I appreciate you sitting with us, talking with us this morning. Thanks for sharing with us your passion for Austin. And we look forward to having you on future episodes. But viewers, if you haven't checked out our website, check us out, sitgcapital.com. You can send us an email, give us a call, shoot us a message, comment, subscribe. We would love to have any feedback you've got for us. And if you've got a friend or family you think would be interested in what we do, send them our information. We'd love to talk and see how we can help. So, Luis, thanks for your time. We'll look to see you
Yeah,
again
Nick,
here
thanks for having me.
soon. Yeah. All right.
Absolutely.
Take care.
Absolutely
We'll
look
see
forward
you.
to it. All right. Thanks,
Excellent.
guys.
All right. Bye bye.